Check one. Test the sound. Test the sound. Check one, two. बोले श्री गजानन स्वामी की जय. बोले श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामी की jai. Devotees, this morning let me once again take the opportunity to welcome everyone as we join together in Sunday morning devotions. Of course, this today is a holiday weekend, and as I begin, I would like to express the hope that all of us who customarily are here are joining again once more. This morning, I'd like to say, as I always do, a word of welcome to listeners who may be joining us for the first time or for the first few times, listeners who are joining from further distances outside of Florida, sometimes even outside of the United States. Welcome to you, and I would express the hope that we join with you in helping to make this an enlightening experience. I would also like to give a heartfelt welcome to members of Dharma Inc, Sri Vishnu Sahastranaam Mandir. Sitaram to all of you. We prepare this morning. This morning will maintain our same format. However, my message, as always, will be geared towards this occasion that we celebrate this weekend here in the United States, which is Memorial Day. Before all of this begins, however, we prepare the self. Devotion, even as we join congregationally, is a deeply personal thing. Devotions, as we perform it here, this presents an opportunity for all of us individually to begin to build ourselves again. Just as time goes along, just as the body goes in cycles and even days, shorter increments, matter degenerates to a certain extent and loses form. So too, if we take our entire existence, as we go through the week, we begin to lose our form, our structure, as we engage in so many different activities and we do so many different things, we become a little bit scattered, so to speak. I say devotion is highly personal because now, this morning, we are presented with the opportunity to make ourselves whole again. We bring all of the different facets of our body back into formation, and we form, if we are to create an image, a solid individual once more to move forward throughout the week, to meet and overcome the many challenges, but also to enjoy the benefits of being focused in success, in spirituality, in true happiness, and of course devotees in contentment. So this system of devotion is before us. We tap into it for our benefit. We join in invocation mantra as we customarily do. As we begin, we put our voices and we say Om Hari Hi Om, Hari Hi Om, Hari Hi Om. We join. Om Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om. That's it. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om. Bhagavan He Ram, He Ram, He Ram, He Ram. हमें दया करो गुरुर ब्रह्मा गुरुर विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वर गुरुर साक्षात् परम ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। ओम सिद्धे बुद्धे प्रदे देवी भुक्ते मुक्ते प्रदायिनी मंत्र मूर्ति सदा देवी महालक्ष्मी नमोस्तुते। श्री गुरु चरण सरोज रज निज मन मुकुर सुधार वरणो रघुबर विमल जसु जो दायक फलचार बोधहीन तन जानिके सुमिरो पवन कुमार बल बुद्धि विद्या देहु मुहे हरहु कलेश विकार सियापति रामचंद्र जी की जय शरणम। हे नाथ मम संकट हरो हरि। As we complete invocation this morning, we now begin with our dhyana. As I guide you this morning through our dhyana, devotees, I would like to remind you of the fundamentals of this little bit of yoga that we perform. It lasts just a short while, so we should capitalize on it. We'll do some dhyan here for a short while, like I said. Then for about 20 minutes or so, we do kirtan. We absorb our message and we worship Narayan Bhagwan, and we conclude with arati. For these few moments, we begin to consolidate the self once more. I will remind you, as it has been some time, that as we engage in this devotion, let us take our seats on the floor, if possible. Sitting on the floor is more than just a tradition. It is science. It allows us to use the electrical forces, the electrical fields and the magnetic fields around us to our advantage. When we sit on the floor, we form a circuit, right? A continuum of energy from Prithvi Ma into our bodies. So this becomes ideal to sit on the floor, even if we sit in our homes, because our homes also transmit that energy, that electricity. If we are not able to sit on the floor, then my recommendation is we sit on an upright seat, like a chair, for instance, a dining room chair, or something to that effect, where the spine remains erect. We plant the soles of the feet firmly on the ground, and we allow the palms of the hand to remain open, whether we open them and clasp it, or we open them and we leave it open in this way. It again maximizes in that instance the energies, that the flow of the energies that course through our bodies. I would like to urge you to not be too relaxed. If we sit on couches and so on, it would be a good time, even just for this short while temporarily as we perform devotions, to scoot down onto the floor. The benefits will be great. The energy, devotees, is drawn from our breath. It is drawn from the fluids in our body, from our organs. It is drawn, devotees, through the mind and the thought waves. Performing yoga in this way allows us to tap into all of these sources of energy in the body. The sages achieve the highest goals by performing yoga. This type of yoga. Ashtasiddhi are conferred. We gain all of the powers that we can tap into in the universe by performing dhyan in this way. It makes us whole again. It is what the body craves. It is what the consciousness craves. It is what the Atma desires. Union with Param Atma. These few moments of dhyan takes us back there. For those of us with the knowledge and the insight, as we begin, we say, it takes us home. The mantra that we recite is Sri Paramatmane Namah Ananta Hari Narayana Ananta Hari Narayana. We focus on Hari. We internalize devotees. We perform dhyan together. Hari 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 Om Sri Paramatmane Hari करोति वाचालं मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुलं धयते गिरिं यत्कृपा तमहं वन्दे परमानन्दं माधवम्। हे परमानन्दं 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 माधवम्। नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय वासुदेवाय। हरि 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 हरि। We keep our eyes closed. We stay connected with Ananta Hari Narayana. To get in tune with ourselves a bit closer this morning, and as we get in tune with ourselves, to tune the entire self into the frequency of the divine, we chant. But how do we chant? We chant with the eyes closed. We chant in the posture of yoga. We chant in the mindset of Hari. Mentally we focus. We use the God-given gift of the voice. The lips devotees utter the name Rama Ram, Rama Ram, Rama Rama Ram. We say Rama Rama Sita Ram. Sitaram, Sitaram. Another bhajan says, though Akshar ka Rama naam Balihari Sukadham. These two syllables, Rama, and then we interject with Sita, we put Devi Ma in front. Sitaram, Sitaram is bliss. Sitaram is wholesome, divine existence. If we immerse ourselves in the syllables, Rama, 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 Ram, Sita Ram, Rama, Ram, Sita Ram. Hey, Rama, Ram, Sita Ram. Hey, Rama, Ram, Sita Ram. Ram Ram Sita Ram. He Ram Ram Sita Ram. Ram Ram. He Ram Ram Sita Ram. Ram Ram Sita Ram. Jai Sita Ram. Jai Sita Ram. He Ram Ram Sita Ram. Ram Ram Sita Ram. Ram Ram Sita Ram. Ram Ram Sita Ram. He Ram Ram Sita Ram. Jai Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Jai Sita Ram, Jai Sita Ram, Jai Sita Ram, Jai Sita Ram. Ram Ram Sita Ram. He Ram Ram Sita Ram. He Ram Ram Sita Now we join in Chaupai. For those of us who, like I said, may be joining for the first few times or the first time. Whenever we perform devotions on a Sunday like this, we take a few moments and we recite a compilation of Chaupai. Very powerful. It calls on the power of Sri Ram, but it reinforces, it is the tonic of our spiritual success. So I urge you to join in if you can. प्रविसी नगर की जय सब रथ चढ़ी सिया सहित को शोभाज समाज सुख कहतन वनयखगे वर्ण शारद शेष सुते सोरस जान महेश सिया पति रामचंद्र जी की जय शरणम सीता रामचंद्र की जय. As we complete our invocation and chaupai, we now, for a few moments, we turn our attentions to Maha Ganapati. Our life is a series of small victories, and today we will hear, albeit briefly under these circumstances, about the small battles we fight and the bigger ones. Whichever way they come, life consists of a series of small battles that become our smaller incremental journeys. We get past an event in our day, we get past a prahar, we get past the day, we get past the week. Whatever success that we seek to enjoy during this time, make no mistake about it, comes from the divine. With an understanding of how the divine works in our body, we fully vest ourselves in that knowledge. We do so because we understand that those powers reside within. They exist on the outside world, but this is not our energy, this is other energy. This is our energy. The body, the breath, the organs, the frequencies. And the input that we engage with this body becomes either divine or otherwise. If we worship Ganapati, then the input is that of the power of Ganapati. And if we enjoy success, incremental success along the way, in a moment, in an event, in a prahar, in a day, in a week, then it is Ganapati at work. It is not us. This becomes the foundation for prayer. This is why prayer is humble. This is why prayer is us being open to energy, spiritual energy, divine energy, and not being closed only to a form or murti. Let Ganapati devotees in the murti form direct us to worship. But let the worship happen in here. Let us bring the energy of Ganapati within. One effective way of doing this is to chant. So we chant simply. We all can join. Maha Ganapati Namostute. Maha Ganapati Namostute. And we take the different names of Ganapati. Matanga Mukha, Shivagirija Sutta, Omkar Ishwar, Namostute. We pay obeisance over and over again. Om Maha Ganapati Namostute. So we have gone from Maha Ganapati to Shiva Girija Sutta. And this is calling on Ganapati as the son of Parvati and Shiva. Shiva Girijasut Namostute. Shiva Girijasut Namostute. Is very simple. Jai, 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 Jai. So Jai 4 times. Ganapati Deva, Gajanana. That's it. Jai Ganapati Deva, Gajanana. We join. Jai, 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 Jai Ganapati Deva, Gajanana, He Gajanana. Gajanana, He Gajanana, Gajanana, He Ganapati Deva, Gajanana, He Ganapati Deva. Jai 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 Ganapati Deva. Mata Parvati Pita Mahadeva, Mata Parvati Pita Mahadeva, Gajanana He Ganapati Deva. Oh Jai 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 Ganapati Deva, Gajanana He Gajanana, Gajanana He Gajanana, Gajanana He Ganapati Deva, Gajanana He Ganapati Deva, Gajanana He Ganapati Deva. Jai Jai Ganapati Deva, Jai Jai Ganapati Deva, Jai Ganapati Deva. Gajanan Swami Ki Jai. After worshiping Ganapati, we now focus our attention on Devi Ma, our Shakti Janani. For many weeks running now, we have been engaging in kirtan. This morning we do bhajan. Once again that I feel is very well known, very popular, and sung beautifully by the late Hari Om Sharan. It says, Jai Narayani, Jai Jai Durge, Jai Jai Ambe, Namo Namah. Once again in bhajan we begin our conversation, we begin our dialogue with Devi Ma. We internalize. As I mentioned at the beginning, the energies are all within the body and they're sometimes scrambled. Devi Ma is that energy in our bodies personified in whatever form energy takes. By food, by nutrients, by the sun, by breathing, by medication even, by the ingesting of any substance, whether it be through the digestive system or through the pores of the body, through the sensory organs, the karma indriya, they all are manifestations, forms of Devi. And like I said, when we take it all in, we need to organize it to become powerful, organize it to become functional in the body. We have this conversation with Devi Ma, we say, Ma, you are the sum total of it all. Make us into a whole person. Make us into a whole, cohesive, fruitful person. Accept us, Ma, as an offering on to you. This becomes the essence of our conversation as we worship Devi Ma. I will sing in a fashion where, even though we simulate it in our different locations, distance-wise, we all sing together. Let us put our voices in and one. Jai Jai Ambe, Namo Namah. Jai Narayani, Jai Jai Durge, Jai Jai Ambe, Namo Namah. Jai Narayani, Jai Ambe, Namo Namah. Jai Narayani. करते अंतर में सुख हर आता, तेरा पावन अंतर में सुख हर, रोम रोम में प्रेम तिहारा, मन में भक्ति विकर जाता। जय कल्याणी O Jai Narayani Jai मन अंतर में मंत्र बनो तुम, जीवन में गुंजा दो माँ। मन अंतर में मंत्र बनो तुम, जीवन में गुंजा दो माँ। जन्म जन्म जय रुद्राणी वांछित फल बरसाए। हाँ मंगल साथी देने वाली मन वांछित फल बरसाए। द्वार तिहारी आके नैया कोई खाली नहीं जाता। जय ब्रह्मानी ओ जय ब्रह्मानी जय जय दुर्गे जय जय अम्बे नमो जय नारायणी। ध्यान भजन हम निस दिन करते मन में जपते नाम विमल। हाँ नाम भजन हम निस दिन करते मन में जपते नाम विमल। शरण परे तो एक सहारा शरण परे तो एक सहारा नैया तेरा चरण कमल। जयति शिवानी जयति शिवानी जय जय दुर्गे जय जय अम्बे ओ जय नारायणी। ओ जय नारायणी जय जय दुर्गे जय जय अम्बे नमो नमः। ओ जय नारायणी जय जय दुर्गे जय जय अम्बे जय जय अम्बे जय जय अम्बे नमो नमः। ओम जयंती मंगला काली भद्रकाली कपालिनी दुर्गा क्षमा शिवा धात्री स्वाहा स्वधा नमोस्तुते। ओम जय त्वं देवी चामुंडी जय भूतापहारिणी जय सर्वगते देवी कालरात्रि नमोस्तुते। नमो दिव्यै महादिव्यै शिवायै सततं नमः। नमो प्रकृति भद्रायै नियतः प्रणतस्मता। शक्ति जगदम्बा माता की जय। After completing worship to Devi Ma, we now finally in our Kirtan segment we turn our attentions to Uma Maheshwar. My vision on a Sunday morning for all of us, myself included, is reconstructing ourselves, to remind ourselves that we are more than just a name and a face and an appearance of what we wear, but further down, deeper inside, there is a creature in all of us of emotion. But beyond that, there is a creature of intellect, a creature of thinking. Even more subtle than that, deeper within, is the core of this creature, and is a creature of consciousness, divine consciousness. And if we were to use this image of ourselves being reconstructed, we have our conscious core, which is then surrounded by the intellectual core. Then that is surrounded by the mental core, and then we have this physical core. If we maintain this image of ourselves, we will always remember that we are more than just what appears to be, how we appear, how we look, how we sound. And we begin to focus on the inner layers. If the outside of the house is beautiful, devotees, and on the inside it's crumbling, then the house is not strong. When we go to the core of the house, the deepest echelon of this self that's constructed and reconstructed self, we find Jivan Jyot. The Jivan Jyot is the Jivatma. And this is our intrinsic connection with Shankar Maharaj, who is Param Atma Jyot, the cosmic light. Never forget for a second that whatever is glimmering within the body, in here in the core, is the substance of what is in the cosmos on the outside. But we feel separate. We feel that we've been separated. We have different experiences from the divine, which are not divine experiences. We have even different experiences amongst ourselves. It is the alteration of that frequency from the cosmic frequency. The individual frequency goes out of synchronization with the divine frequency. When we take these few moments and we worship Lord Shiva, Shankar Maharaj, we retune, I can say, the core frequency, and it begins to reverberate, and it tunes the intellectual self and the mental self and the physical self. We develop the ability to do that, devotees. We will not only wish for, but we will taste, we will experience success over and over and over again. We identify with that cosmic energy. Shankar Maharaj. Powerful, formative, fundamental mantra. Panchakshar. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Without going into the ramifications, Namah Shivaya is the building blocks of who we are and the building blocks of what the cosmos is also. It is a unifying mantra. We chant. Om Namah Shivaya, Shivaya Namah. Om Dhinna Dhinna Dhinna. Om Namah Shivaya, Shivaya Namah. Om Namah Shivaya, Shivaya Namah. Om Namah Shivaya, Shivaya Namah. Namah Shivaya, Shivaya Namah. Shiva 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 Shivaya Namo. Shiva 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 Shivaya Namo. Hara Haraya Namo. Shiva 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 Shivaya Namo. Shiva 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 Shivaya Namo. Hara 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 Haraya Namo. One of the most effective ways to tune the consciousness into the divine consciousness is to sing and to clap. But not only on the external sense. By singing and clapping, we're creating a rhythm within the body. We're creating a rhythm with our chant. We're bringing ourselves into a cycle, into lay, into gati devotees, and that, as we continue on that cycle, that continuum, it begins to build and it begins to intensify. And we have different experiences. We feel ourselves becoming lighter. We see different colors of light in the consciousness as the eyes remain closed. We feel heat, we feel coldness, devotees. It is the beginnings of unification with the Divine Spirit. But it requires us to do this. As we sit in our places of devotion, of places of worship, we engage, we connect. Shiva, 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 Shivaya Namo. Shiva 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 Shivaya Namo. Hara 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 Haraya Namo. Shiva Hara Hara Shiva Shivaya Namo. Om Hara Shiva 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 Shivaya Namo. We continue to clap, we continue to sing, even if it's softly to ourselves. We keep that rhythm going. Because Bhagwan Shankar is Bhava. But when he awakens in the consciousness, he becomes Bhav. He becomes expression, the expression of divine consciousness. We continue on one more time. Bhava 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 Bhavaya Bhava 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 Bhavaya Bhavaya Namaha Bharaya Namaha Shivaya Namaha Om Namah Shivaya Bhavaya Namaha Om Bharaya Namaha Shivaya Namaha Om Namah Shivaya Om Shiva 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 Namah Shivaya. Om Shiva 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 Namah Shivaya. Om Shiva 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 Namah Shivaya. Bhavaya Namaha. Haraya Namaha. Shivaya Namaha. Namaha Shivaya. Om Karpura Gauram Karunavataram Sansara Saram Bhujagendaharam Sada Vasantam Hridayarvinde Bhavam Bhavami Sahitam Namami Umapati Mahadeva Ki Jai. Blessings to you, devotees, every one of you, for joining this morning as we complete Kirtan and we enlighten the self. We not only enlighten the spirit, but the consciousness, which is so much deeper, so much more significant. Now, with the time that I have left, I would certainly like to share a message with you. And like I said earlier, today is Memorial Day. Well, I should clarify that statement, right? For us who live in the United States of America, tomorrow is Memorial Day. Sorry. And in observance of this Memorial Day, many things happen. Now, I know Canada has a Memorial Day. I know it's not today, not this weekend, and possibly different places. But the concept of Memorial Day, I feel, extends to everyone. So I would invite you to partake in this message fully, even, as we might be inclined to think it doesn't apply to us directly. On this Memorial Day, the intention is that we reflect on what we refer to as our patriots, the ones who make the ultimate sacrifice in our past wars and lost their lives in the process. Today I would like us to reflect as Americans, as members of a global community who, in whatever country we may find ourselves living, have people of this kind. As Hindus also, I would like us to reflect on our Dharma's relationship with war, which is important to consider, and this opportunity comes not very frequently. And also, as we do these two things, we also envelop our entire selves as humanity. As humanity, we reflect on the value of life. And when life is lost in a cause, devotees, when life lost in a cause, we reflect on how the beneficiaries of this act of the loss of life, the mass loss of life, how we as the beneficiaries should respond. This is why I feel today is a good day, tomorrow is a good day, a significant day. First of all, as Americans and as all of humanity, as citizens of this world that we've been placed on to inhabit and to live in, the implication is obvious at the face level. Tomorrow, like I said, we focus on these souls and we show our gratitude to that ultimate sacrifice that was made. But ironically, devotees, in the process, we and I try to put this very carefully, but I try to be accurate in what I say too, as soldiers ourselves, as we become trained soldiers in the corporate army, as we ourselves become trained soldiers in the corporate army, which is the world of money, the world of business, the world of materialism, that trains us to fight and then be rewarded with a few material things here and there, to be rewarded with profit. What happens is we get super excited. We get super excited for this extra day off. You know, we have Friday, Saturday, we have Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And we salivate at the prospect of that long weekend. Then, devotees, we cook, we drink, we enjoy, we fraternize. We capitalize on the opportunity on Memorial Day to self-indulge. And it is something that we should pause and we should think about. Because remember, the nature of this little time, half an hour invariably we spend on Sunday morning, is not to only hear the nice things, but to help to question ourselves. It is spiritual school, and how lucky we are to still be in spiritual school. So we turn the mirror on ourselves this way and we reflect on that message. And I feel it's important this morning to remind you of this one fact. Okay? We honor these individuals who have given their lives, I'll rephrase that, whose lives have been taken to give us our freedoms. And in every child, in every brother, in every father, in every friend of devotees that died in this war, that was sanctioned by someone, that was sanctioned by a government, and like I said, not giving their life so much, but that life forcefully being taken, because I think we can all agree that this process of, if you want to call it martyrdom or losing your life in this way, is not a voluntary thing. Their lives that were taken away from them, not being voluntarily, we ought to honor them. We ought to also, as we honor them, to mourn them, to mourn this mass and in many ways senseless killing. But I said I want to ask you to remember one thing. I want to reinforce something for you, and it is this. We remember that if it is that they helped to give us our freedom, let us never make the mistake of confusing freedom for enjoyment, because it is not the same. Freedom is not, a laissez-faire attitude. Freedom is not the ability to do whatever the heck we want. Freedom is a privilege that not everyone can take for granted. But that privilege should never be brought into the realm of abuse and only be enjoyed, as Memorial Day clearly shows. Freedom also requires sacrifice. Freedom requires effort. Freedom requires structure. And I'll take the opportunity to remind you that I speak only spiritually when I speak to you. I don't speak politics and so on. And we look at ourselves, we look at our existence, we look at our Atma, we look at our situation in life, we look at our opportunities for progress esoterically. Material progress is your business, my business. You don't need advice on that. We all know how to achieve that or not. But collectively, spirituality is an aspect of freedom too, and the types of freedom that we experience. I won't go there today because I take the opportunity once a year when we talk about Memorial Day and so on to bring some sobering and some horrific figures to you of the toll of violence and war. Why do I do this? Not because I want to be gory all the time, but because it's good for us to remember. And I remind you, as we all sit and listen, many of us have people that we know that ought to be honored on Memorial Day. People lost family members in the service and so on. The question I said I would address today is, what Sanatan Dharma, what does Hinduism say? How does it treat war? And I will begin by showing you the effect of war. I will show the impact of war. Then I will show you how the impact of our Dharma fits into this idea of war. And then hopefully I'll conclude. This, devotees, is the shocking aspect of it. People lost their lives for wars. There's not a forum to question the motive and the reasons and the profiteering and so on that happens during a war. At the end of the day, the largest toll is in human life. The largest toll is in souls. So when you listen to this, don't think bodies only, think souls. World War II. World War I, right? 1913 to 1917, 1918. 25 million souls were lost, devotees, in 4 years. Process that to start with. 25 million, 4 years. Then we come to World War II, right? This is a range that has been given. These are authenticated ranges. I have the authority to share this with you because some of you know I am a historian. 56 to 85 million lives lost, devotees, in 6 years. Souls. 56 to 85 million lives lost in World War II. And the reason that there is this huge range is because nobody really knows how many died in Russia and China, right? For obvious reasons. It's not a history lesson. But look at the loss of life. When the World War was done, the globe established itself now into powers, the balance of power. Where did the balance of power originate? From where did this come? It came, devotees, from the need for governments to exercise control over systems, over geography, and sadly over lives too. And this is what happens when we leave life and death in the hands of humans who do not have the right to take life. When this was done, we go back a little bit. Let's backtrack into the colonial days, colonialism. Spanish colonialism, which happened before the World Wars and so on, it incurred 36 million deaths. But then we come to the biggest culprit of them all, which is British, English colonialism. The toll in souls for English colonialism, devotees, 90 plus million lives. 90 plus million lives. From the period of the beginning of British colonialism up until the various dates for independence, different states, 17th century all the way up to 20th century. This, devotees, 90 million lives, listen to this, does not include approximately 40 million African slaves that were slaughtered in the slave colonies of England and also the United States. We're included now. Okay, so you put it all told, it becomes even greater. The Atlantic slave trade on the whole, right? Slavery, as we call it, Africanized slavery, accounted for 60 million souls, devotees, 60 million souls. 15 to 20 million died only in transit, meaning on the ships coming over. To what do we attribute this? This is not a natural disaster. This is a human disaster, a human-made disaster. We open ourselves up, devotees, this morning, just for a short while, to the ugly side of humanity. We come a little closer to home now. I want to show you one set of people, one set of invaders or colonizers, however you want to call it. The Mughals accounted for 5 million deaths, 5 million murdered Hindus and Indians by Islamic invaders in the name of Islam. It is a fact, it is a reality. Listen to this. From 1526 to 1857, 330 years, 5 million lives. And again, not to be outdone, The British was now in the peak of its colonial powers. This was right after post-Mughal, right after, let's just say, after the 1850s into the 1870s and so on. The British became in full power, and it became what they say the empire in which the sun never sets. For those of us who a long time ago knew that. In the peak of British power, as it now impacts, I bring it to impact our Dharma on Hindus. There is this thing called the Sepoy Revolt, or the Indian Mutiny of 1857. Very well documented, very well written about. This is there where devotees, the British slaughtered 2.8 million Indians of all kinds, Hindus, Muslims, the hybrid ones, right, who were a combination of Islam and Hinduism, the Mughals, everybody. They didn't really discriminate. 2.8 million, but listen to it. The British colonial soldiers massacred 2.8 million of these sepoys, who were the soldiers, the Sikhs and the Rajputs and so on, who were the fighting classes in India, right? Murdered 2.8 million of them, right, in the span of 1 year and 6 months. What is that, 18 months? 18 months. 2.8 million in 18 months. Let me break it down and make it a little bit more effective for you to digest. That's 550 days, roughly, for 5,100 deaths per day. 5,100 deaths per day for 1 year and 6 months. Can we even fathom that, devotees? Yet this is our history. And yet when this day comes around, we ask ourselves, what do we do? But we question ourselves as humanity. I don't want to make this into a protracted history lesson, as much as I'm tempted to do it, right? Let's come to Mahabharata. Okay? Mahabharata, devotees, accounts for 3.3 million deaths. And at that point, just to finish this whole thing for you, the population of India was estimated. In those days there weren't any, there were formal statistics, but not in the way we know. Statistically, it projects that in 4000 BC, India had 12 million people. The north of India, I would say, just to be more precise. The north of India had 12 million people, and 3.3 million died in the Mahabharata war. Can you just imagine that? Now we come to, finally I'll give you this one, Ram Katha, Ramayana, Ramcharitra Manas. 700,000 lives lost on both sides, but this is the kicker. In 13 days. 700,000 lives lost in 13 days. Now this is I say we should reflect on memorial as humanity, right? This is how we reflect on it on humanity. We look at our record of violence, and we're all included, unless we don't consider ourselves human. We're all included here. But what now as Hindus, how do we fit into these statistics? How do we fit into these pictures? Right? What does Hinduism say about war? What is our view, our stance, our role in this, what we call the act of war? Hindus are typically a non-violent people, right? We don't go on too many crusades and so on, if you know what I mean. Well, the answer might still surprise you. In fact, the statistics that I mentioned are kind of shocking. You can be prepared to get a little bit of a shock again, but this one might be a little bit a jolt, right? The question we're answering now is, what does Hinduism say? How does Sanatana Dharma fit into war? Well, I will tell you that war is a reality for us in many forms, on many levels, to many degrees of intensity. There is first and foremost the spiritual war that wages. Now this is not a real battle with spear and gun and, like that one Jagdishwar, machine gun and thing, right? This is the premise of war. The premise of war exists not in the world, but in our world at all times. Because the universe of which we are a part, individually and collectively, is always in a state of conflict. It's always in a situation of what I call attrition. And what is that attrition, devotees? The basic attrition that I allude to many times, especially on Shivratri night, is the attrition between time and matter, or time and material. That attrition of space and time that eventually leads to destruction. But there are also different types of attrition that go on in our own lives. The forces of positivity versus the forces of negativity. The force of day versus the force of light. The pairs of opposite devotees, we present them in a poetic form. We call it rag and dvesh. But at the end of the day, essentially, it portrays conflict. Our life is one of conflict. And I say, we fight two battles in life at all times, right? We fight two scales of battle. And this is the small battles and the large battles. I finally come to it. What are the small battles, devotees, and the large battles that we fight? Well, we fight against in these small battles. I'll deal with first. When we fight small battles, we fight against natural forces, and we do it daily, and sometimes we do it instinctively. Is a word that's reflex. It's a reflex action. Gravity, we fight against the force of gravity all the time. We fight against the force of the earth and gravity. We fight against the gravity on our organs. We fight against the gravity of our body. The brain, the body, and the mind intricately fight battles of survival for us at all times. These are natural occurrences in our life, and this can have an effect. These small things, you put them together, can have a big effect, and we call it's an effect of imbalance. Last week we called it dosh. I won't go back into that, but I will tell you, by performing devotions this way, remember I said earlier, we recreate ourselves. These little battles kind of fray us on the edges. It makes us a little bit tired and scattered, right? You can picture the aftermath of a battle. When we perform devotions, it brings us together, and it makes us whole again, able to move on. These are the small battles. What are the bigger battles, devotees? The bigger battles that we fight in life are the battles of good action versus bad action. The battle of any action, good or bad, versus inaction is another battle. And of course, the greatest battle we fight, the biggest battle we fight, is that primordial battle of time versus matter. For us, is the forces of change versus the forces of stagnation. We have two choices in life. The world, creation, matter, divinity forces us towards attrition. And I know this is kind of philosophical, but it makes sense if you listen to it. I hope you appreciate it. This attrition between time and matter forces itself on the earth. There's resistance, but there is force, and this force wins over resistance. That's why we have the movement of time, the dissipation of matter and its recreation and so on. And this, devotees, for us is a force of change. In our lives, as it applies to us, is a force of change. And then we have an enemy coming to attack that force of change. And it's the force of stagnation. What is the force of stagnation? The force of stagnation is the force of sleep. It's the force of tamas. It's the force of darkness. It's the force of inaction in our lives. This is the greatest battle that we fight. And our scriptures, right? This is not psychology. This is the philosophy of our scriptures. Lays it out very clearly. So now, devotees, you shouldn't be in any way surprised when we see that our scriptures portray war, violence, and death in a very prominent way. Right? You come back to the basics only. What does Hinduism say? How does it treat? What does it consider? How do we interact with war and violence and death? The answer, simply put, is prominently. Imagine that. Prominently. Not because we're violent, not because we like war, but because war, battle, attrition is a universal reality. I want to show you real quick. The best way to access the question of war in Hinduism, right? I mean, how do you find in our scriptures a record of these things, war and other things, politics and so on? How do you find a record of the oldest existing system of spirituality in the known world? How do you find it? Well, there's only one place to go, right? We go to Smriti, we go to the scriptures. In this case, we go to the Puran. I'm going to show you very briefly how Ramcharitramanas, how Mahabharata and Devi Puran treat war. We start with Mahabharata because Mahabharata is the most recent. And I will say this of Mahabharata. I think it speaks for itself to a certain degree. The Mahabharata starts right on a battlefield. It is about a war. Dharma kshetre, kurukshetre, samaveta yutsavaha. Right? It starts in this way. But when we condense out all of the shlokas and so on, and we bring out information as it applies to war and the fighting of war and battles and violence and so on, weaponry, military strategy, fighting methods, find themselves in the most modern state of all Purana in Mahabharata, because it is the latest of our record of war in Sanatana Dharma. It was a terrible war. One of the interesting things about it, when you study it, you come to realize, when you look at the numbers and so on, which I won't share with you, because it's the latest and most, most modern, most sophisticated of our dharmic wars. Mahabharata engaged the smallest of armies, comparatively speaking, but it did the most damage. Okay? The army was only approximately 100,000 humans strong. So the damage and the fallout, to use that pun, as you will see from that war, is so great to the extent that there are still traces of radioactive contamination and so on out there in Kurukshetra where the battle took place. So Mahabharata doesn't shy away from war. Krishna Katha doesn't shy away from war. How about we look at Ramayana now, because we go from the latest yuga to the second latest, which is the Treta Yuga. In Treta Yuga devotees, Ramayana, in that time, my impression of it is that war was really formalized into formations of branches and established ranking and so on. There is this wonderful part of it that I think can explain it very clearly to you and show you that Hindus have never shied away from war or the act of war. It becomes one of our realities too. It says, Sena Sanga Chaturanga Apara Amita Shubhata Sava Samara Jujhara. This is in Balkan. The armies of Raja Dashrath was being described. In fact, it was Pratapabhanu, but this Raja Dashrath's army was described into 4 branches called Sena Chaturanga, or the four limbs of war. And they are the elephant charge, or the section with elephants, the charioteers, the mounted horsemen. One of the interesting things about this whole idea of the horsemen being mounted was that they weren't Indian horses. I don't even know if it had horse in India. I can't say for sure, right? I was sleeping for that part of my history class. But, right, it does say here that this idea of the formations of war were so scientifically put together, were so meticulously planned, that they used, Raja Dashrath, Pratapabhanu in that case, used horses that were imported from Arabia at exorbitant costs. And all we know that the Arabian horses, don't get the wrong impression of me, but I know a little bit about horse racing, right? I don't do it. I hear people talking and things. And the Arabian horses, right, are supposed to be, right, amongst the best. There's what I hear anyway. I don't want to think I'm just making this up, I hope my father kill me for saying this, but my Aja tell me this, right? I don't know how he knows so much about horse racing. That is besides the point. So, Ramayana, right, talks about these forces, right, and the formation of armies in this way. It also talks about rank. There are many ranks: Rat, Atirat, Rat, Maharat, Atirat, and then they had the greatest amongst them all, Dashrath. Dashrath was a name and a title also, and it spoke about the capabilities they had to fight war. And then there's the methodology. cruel devotees, violent and gory. This is, if we take 3 stages of war, the primitive stage, the middle stage, and the advanced stage. Mahabharata is the advanced stage. Treta Yuga, Ram Katha is the middle stage, and Devi Bhagavad in Sat Yuga is the primitive stage. You know what these Vanaras used to do? All I want to hear is, I think the little ones might enjoy hearing this. They used to open their chests and rip out their hearts. That's what Vanaras do. See, even the big children enjoyed it too. Right? They would dismember the limbs when they kill you on the battlefield. Literally rip it out. Right? Why? To show superiority. And then this is my favorite. Kind of tongue-in-cheek I say that, is that when they kill you, well, the Nisichara and them, they would rip out their heads. Right? Rip out their heads and then use it as a projectile. Right? Use it to fight back the enemy. I don't know if I wanted or didn't want to be there for that, but I would be interested. Right? If you're fighting on the right army, it's a cool thing to be in. But this is kind of, the approach that they took, right, towards war. And this is like I said, Dwapar and Treta, right? Hindu warfare was not just about, like I said, these formal battles that we hear so nicely in our scriptures. It's about trauma too. There are 2 things that actually showed also that warfare was becoming more advanced. So the Hindus, we as Hindus, had formalized systems of fighting and killing and so on. I'll tell you what they are real quickly. One is distraction. And the best way to bring this out to you without taking too much time is to remind you of the Obhyaman of Ramayana. You know who the Obhyaman of Ramayana Katha is, right? It's done 10 o'clock already. Right? Kaldemi. Right? Kaldemi devotees, when Hanuman, Lakshman had been shot with Shaktiban. Hanuman was coming. Right? He stopped to take a rest by Kaldemi stopped him to make him drink water and all kind of thing. And then what did he do? He tried to deceive Hanuman into 1, a false sense of security, and 2, into misinformation, because he knew that he was going to get the Sajivan Mool, right? He tell him rest, and then he said, Hot Maharan Ravana Ramahi Jiti Hina Rama Su Nashama Yamahi. He's saying that, don't worry, you have plenty time. I could see things from a long distance, from a far distance, and I know that Ram is winning the war now. Right? Ravan getting licks. So you relax and think. Go take your bath, come back, I will initiate you and give you the same powers, and well, there's a different katha. But this devotees is distraction at its best, deception at its best, and it is involved in war too. And we have it stamped in our history and in our military documentation also, because the scriptures are authentic. Then I'll do one more. Treason devotees. I see if everybody was in front of me and asked the question, who committed treason? Most people would be thinking hard about that. This group all they look like all they remember. He was on this chair. Shout it out on the phone if you hear, text it. We wouldn't see it, but Vibhishan committed treason. Imagine that. Okay? Tell you a little secret. He wasn't alone. Sushen committed treason too. Because Sushen was brought in from the kingdom, or from in Lanka to come out of Lanka to recommend and administer Sajivan Bhuti. And there was one more. I don't know what they call the person who commits treason. What's the traitor? Whatever it is, right? One more person committed treason, and might be surprising for you to hear, right? Is a brother of Vibhishan, Kumkaran. He actually committed treason also, but I'll tickle you with this one. I wouldn't go into the details, right? Maybe one day when we do Ram Katha, somebody asked me to read Lankakan, asked me to read that part, and I'll let you know. But Kumkaran also, right, committed treason, and there we have it. Treason also. I'll come to the beginning. The last one I said I'll talk about, which is Devi Puran, and I'll try to conclude here. I would say that the rawest and most violent methods of war were reserved for the Devi Puran. In that time it was Satyug, the war was very primordial, and there were things like the drinking of blood, seduction, right? Actually, very heavily dismemberment and so on. If we go and we want to do all research, look at the killing of Mahishasur, look at the killing of Durgam, look at the killing of Shumbaneshum, no Madhu and Kaitab. Okay, you look at that, right? And when you see the details that have been included, you realize that there was a formal war in place, but the rules and the codes and the etiquette of war was very different. I think devotees just gives us a good idea of where we as Hindus stand in war. I will summarize by saying that it's not something that we treat as apart from ourselves or we turn a blind eye to. And I will say that we're not averse to fighting, but understand this. Every time there has been a war in our scriptures, this war has been for a higher cause. It has been for a higher purpose. And I will say, we must admit that as Hindus, we were skilled, we were calculated, and we were deadly when need be. I'll end by saying this to you. We must always remember that there are 3 levels to our scriptures at all times. So don't only take this at face value. Yes, this is a physical dimension. We talk about blood and death and killing and so on. But there's also a symbolic dimension to it. These wars symbolize certain things. And there's also the philosophical or the cosmic dimension. So when we take this information, we take it as facts. Let us not only take it as history, but let's take it for the 3 levels on which it should be taken, symbolically and physically also. So for war devotees, we can see now is a reality metaphysically, globally, nationally, and individually. In conclusion, I'll come back and I say we reflect again. We celebrate our fallen soldiers. For the ones who died globally and nationally, internationally also, we acknowledge this somber and important moment. I'd like you, even if that information from earlier didn't appeal to everybody, I'd like you to listen to me for these last few moments as I bring you one more thought on Memorial Day. I will say that as we acknowledge this somber and this most important moment, let us see Memorial Day as we reflect. We use that analogy, that imagery. Let us see it as a pond. Okay? We reflect on it as a pond, if you will. And this Memorial Day pond, it reflects 3 things. We look below the surface and we see shadows. We see highlights. We see the playing out of our past below the surface, of wars and death and violence, of our own people, our own families and so on. This is below the surface. But then we look on the surface and we see a glimmer. On the surface of that water, we see a glimmer. That a glimmer, devotees, is a reflection. It's a reflection of who we are, where we are now. It's a reflection of who we really are. And if we're looking at water in this way, we're either looking from the bank or we're looking in a vessel that is in the water. In every case, there is interaction, attrition of that water and that object, whether that object is a bank, a boat, or even if we're standing in water, and it creates ripples. The bottom, below the surface, represents the highlights of our past. The surface represents a reflection of who we really are, now who we are today. And the ripples, devotees, of these objects and the banks should represent, I would say, the movements that should take us into our own future. These movements, these ripples, is really our future history, a course of actions we all take individually, as groups, as families, as groups, as communities, as a country, to determine and dictate our future. Remember, these movements depend on 3 things: the past, the present, and finally, it depends on us. On Memorial Day, devotees, if we can take some of these thoughts, and while we enjoy our nice food and so on, we give some introspection. We put some introspection on the menu too, I will say. Right? I think it'll do us all a lot of good. Our responsibility as an organization, as Dharma Inc., is to create awareness. I am creating awareness on behalf of our organization. Awareness as a community. Let us be aware of ourselves, and then we can take steps outwardly to be aware and influence things that go on around us. But the influence we will. Okay? I'd like to take a moment now for us to offer a brief prayer for the souls that were lost, the souls that were taken, forcefully taken in these times. We pay homage to them, we give thanks. We appeal to the Lord to negotiate these souls in whatever situation it may find itself. There, we don't know, but we can offer a prayer. We bow our heads, devotees. Join with me very, very briefly. I ask you to focus on the feet of Anantari Narayan, Satyanarayana Swami, who is the keeper of all souls as Dharmaraj. We say, Om Anadhini Dhino Deva Sankachakra Gadadhara Akshayam Pundarikaksha Pretamoksha Pitramoksha Atmamoksha Pradobhava Om Narayanaaya Namah Satyanarayan Swami Ki Jai. It is our custom in Sri Vishnu Sahastranaam Mandir, when we acknowledge those who lost their lives, I like to take a moment and acknowledge the ones who served also, who served and saw a lot of that carnage that occurred in those times. And we have with us in our community, here with us at this point, that regularly associate with us. We have Kenny Deonarayan Singh, who served in the US Army, and we also have Uncle Larry, right? Larry Budwa, who also served. I want to, on behalf of all of us, we send a prayer to your comrades, and we also give our thanks in context to you for your service also. And we apologize we couldn't do that in person, but certainly the sentiment is there. I will leave this as my message for today, devotees. I want to thank you, I should say, for once again listening to the message as it applies. You know, these are the essential parts of our lives that we need to engage all the time, and I hope that we feel like we've done that. Blessings to you, and I must say thanks also. Dhanya ho. Just one or two lines, we sing the praises of Narayan Bhagwan, and we go into our final arati. We say, Sridharam Madhavam Gopika Vallabham Janaki Nayakam Ramachandram Bhaje Krishna Damodaram Vasudevam Hari Govinda Jai Jai Gopala Jai Jai Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jai Jai Sri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva He Nath Narayana Vasudeva He Nath Narayana Vasudeva He Nath Narayana He Nath Narayana He Nath Narayana Vasudeva Sridharam Madhavam Gopika Vallabham Janaki Nayakam Ramachandram Bhaje Krishna Damodaram Vasudevam Hari Vasudevam Hari Vasudevam Hari Satyanarayan Swami Ki Jai. If we've prepared our arati, I would ask you to stand briefly this morning as we complete our final arati to conclude our devotions. विषय विकार मिटाओ पाप हरो देवा श्रद्धा भक्ति बढ़ाओ संतन के सेवा ओम जय मात पिता तुम मेरे शरण गहु मैं तुम बिना और न दूजा आश करो जिसकी ओम जय तुम पूर्ण परमात्मा तुम अंतरयामी पार ब्रह्म परमेश्वर तुम सबके स्वामी ओम जय तुम करुणा के सागर तुम पालन करता स्वामी तुम पालन दीन दयालु कृपालु दीन दयालु कृपा ओम जय तुम हो एक गोचर सबके प्राण के सब भी मिलो तुमको मैं तुम दे ओम जय दीन बंधु दुख हरता तुम रक्षक मेरे प्रभु ठाकुर तुम करुणास्त बढ़ाओ अपने हाथ उठा लो बार पर्यो तेरे ओम जय जगदीश हरे ओम जय जगदीश हरे ओम साजं चावर्ति संयुक्तं वान्योगितं मया दीपं गृहाण देवेश त्रैलोक्य तिमिरापहम्. We join in closing mantra this morning. We say a prayer for ourselves. We say a prayer for our families, our friends. We say a prayer for our organization. We say a prayer for our communities. We say a prayer for our country, for our leaders, for our gurus, for our pundits. We say a prayer for humanity. Let us all join. Om Dhau Shanti Antarikshagam Shanti Prithvi Shanti Rapa Shanti Aushadhiya Shanti Vanaspatiya Shanti Vishwadeva Shanti Brahma Shanti Sarvam Shanti Shanti Deva Shanti Sama Shanti Riddhi Shanti Bhavatu. Om Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणो त्वमेव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव. ओम शांति 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 हरि ओम. ओम गुरुर्ब्रह्म गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो गुरुर् साक्षात् परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः. हरि ओम श्री परमात्मा नमः. बोले श्री गजानन स्वामी की जय. उमापति महादेव की जय. आदिशक्ति जगदम्बा माता की जय. पवन पुत्र हनुमान की जय. बोले श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामी की जय. बोले श्री सूर्य नारायण स्वामी की जय. बोले भाई सब संतन की जय. प्रेम से बोले श्री सत्य सनातन धर्म की जय. Shubhamastu devotees, it's 10:16, so if you don't mind, I will forego the formalities this afternoon, this morning. I want to say a word of blessing to all of you, a word of blessing to everyone who came out to make today's devotion a success. I want to encourage you to be careful, prayerful, and considerate when I made my last few comments, remarks at the end, I said Kenny Day Narayan Singh and Uncle Larry, but it's also Uncle Kenny too, right? This doesn't sound right to say Kenny Day Narayan Singh. So Uncle, I apologize. You more like a father than an uncle to many of us, but to Uncle Kenny, thank you for your service. And devotees, on behalf of the entire Dharma Inc, we wish you a safe and spiritual week, and we hope to see you again next week. Jai Jai Sitaram.